for those that are listening and are not aware, we're skipping a few parts, but that's totally fine. When the first institutional investor for Rocket.Chat actually passed away, and when I talked about aligning until the funeral, I mean, if you wanna tell the story, Gabriel, I think that
Yeah,
was
I can tell the story. Like first, like Harry was had this kind of energy, which was crazy. I always you could feel that he was his day maybe had 48 hours. That was the feeling that you always had about him. You'd be uh, um, so much energy and do so much all the time. But so when he found about Rocket Chat, he really like almost hunted me to find got so many other founders to the founders of MongoDB to send me an email to introduce him. Um, and then I was away on an event, so I didn't reply to his email immediately. Right, it was like on the next day, and he got nervous, which I found funny. Like he got nervous, and he sent me another email trying to introduce himself and say, look. I'm the nice kind of VCs. I'm a DJ. You're gonna like me. I used to pilot F-16s for the army. My mom was Brazilian, so he started to pitch him as a nice guy to me. And then I went to do my research. Like, okay, who the hell is this Harry Veller? And then I thought so many founders, and there's so many good like reviews of he even got some prizes about like the founders voting on the best partners or best VCs. And so I wanted to meet him. He pitched my idea back to me. It was actually like the funding round didn't have any pitch deck or anything. He was just saying like how much communication and chat application collaboration tools would become so pervasive everywhere, and how much privacy and just being able to be distributed and controlled would become something important, and it would be a big opportunity for a software like Rocket.Chat to get that part of the market. So he wrote there and then on a piece of paper a term sheet and said like, you go there, you create just incorporate the business because you didn't have the business incorporated at the time. It's like incorporate the business and we will transfer you the money.
I love it. How did he find out about you guys in the first place, basically?
So because like when we started Rocket Chat, the open source project, not the company, I got an invitation to go to San Francisco to do a present, yeah, to do a presentation in San Francisco about the project. And then I asked like, okay, are you guys paying for hotel or flights or whatever? And the guys from MongoDB, sorry, it wasn't MongoDB, it was like Meteor, said like, oh, no, we have this event. You're invited. You can come and you're gonna have the mic for 15 minutes to talk about Rocket Chat. And Rocket Chat at the time wasn't making me any money. It was just like I was just putting my own money, so I was bootstrapping it. So for me, it was already okay. I'm already spending a lot of money on developers. Do I want to go all the way to San Francisco for to do a talk of 15 minutes?
You were living in
So
London at that time, or
no,
in
no, I
Brazil
was
already?
living. I was back in Brazil.
You're back in Brazil,
Uh,
okay.
to be closer with the team and with some of the customers that we have from Connecti, which is the other company, and Rocket Chat was the side project at that point. So I said like, well, it's not even my main thing. Is I spending a lot of money trying to get it off the ground. Then I start to think like, how many times I'm going to be invited to do a talk in San Francisco in my life, right? Um, so I was like, fuck it, I'll do it. But if I go, I have to maximize the return of the investment of going all the way to San Francisco. So I started to call everybody that I knew from my time living in London, and then met some of the MongoDB guys. I sent an email to like all open source companies and other businesses that I could find, like enrolled in a lot of meetups that I could, and told my wife that I was going to stay there for a week. And she was not impressed because she's like, okay, but you told me you invited to do a talk for like 15 minutes. Why are you staying there for for almost 10 days? And I was like, well, if I'm going all the way there, I'm gonna try to talk to as many people as I can. And that's on the end. I've met with the MongoDB guys. They wrote about Rocket.Chat in their press release that was coming for the next version of MongoDB. Uh, and the press release was discussed on the board meeting. And then NEA was one of the investors. So Harry read it and then now got really excited about what we were doing and decided to track us. So that I heard later from Andrew, his assistant, his associate,
I love it. Yeah,
that
I think it's
they
funny
were
because
tracking us.
that's how oftentimes some of the best investments they come along. Um, you got to be in front of something that you a problem that you've been thinking about for a long time, and in general, in my opinion, true innovation. I read this from a blog post from Fred Wilson, and I agree. It happens around the edges. So these are typical problems that you've been thinking about for a while. You've been feeling it, and then you have right. You're not being in that situation where like if you work too much, you can't make money, like you said.
Yeah.
When you see it, then you're like, oh, I need to stop everything I'm doing and really go deep into that solution. Otherwise, I believe you get into this flow, which for the most part, most investors actually invest that way. They kind of like see what's out there, what's hot, what's coming, and uh, usually these are the ones that are not going to get paid really well in the future because our job is to we get compensated by having an opinion about the future before the future is even a reality, and it seems like the Harry was excellent at taking the right risk and by seeing the future in the present.
Yeah, he,
But
he was on the Midas list from Forbes like 10 years in a row. So he did during like 10 years one of the best 100 investments in technology in the world in in a row. And then that's after becoming was impressive. Like he was a fighter jet pilot, which on its own can be a whole career, right? Like to be how many years you have to be in the army and study and then you become a F-16 pilot.
yeah,
Then
it's
he
quite a
quit.
complex job as well. Like every time you go up, it's pretty risky. Um, you know.
And then he left to do business school, started a business where like went to work with Oracle, spin off, and then got like success enough to build a career, go to the VC world, and then by the time he was 46, he already had been on the Forbes list like 10 times. So it was a very intensive life. But the interesting part was that when he got involved and he monitored us for 9 months or almost a year. When he decided to was make an investment, he already had decided by the time he called me. So he said like, look, I already called people who have worked with you. I felt a little bit invaded in some ways. Like, why? Who? Like, I wanted to ask him, but I thought it was be unpolite and he would not. But I called a few people who worked in the past. They say that it's going to be a pleasure to work with you. I've been following you and the progress of your company, your project and all that stuff. So I decided that we're investing on NEA is investing on you. We just need to figure out the details. Where are you? And I was like, okay, I can meet you in New York next Monday. And then it's like, okay, I'm gonna fly. I'll fly to New York, and then we're gonna have lunch. And then throughout the lunch, he pretty much convinced me to not take a deal that was on the table from ADP to buy the company. And there was also a deal from like an option from GitLab. And then he convinced me that he was going to be the most interesting path. And that's something I've learned. You ask sometimes like people who also made a mark on 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 my framework of thinking, and Sitsi from GitLab made an impact on me because we were discussing selling the company or merging the company with GitLab uh, on the early days, and then Sitsi said that his framework for making a decision was always maximizing for interestingness because the money side sometimes is harder to grasp. He thought, I understand what he meant by that. It's like sometimes a decision that you take now, if the decision is driven by money, you could actually can on the long run maybe it's not the best decision money wise. Because for instance, if I have sold the company for ADP for money on that short term, or you never know what's going to happen next, or the opportunities that are going to open up when you're excited about what you do in life. So he would maximize his decisions to how much excited and motivated he would still be to keep working and being creative and building stuff, because that would probably have an even bigger reward later on, and he would have lived a more interesting life. So he said that at some point someone offered to buy GitLab for maybe let's say like $5 million. And for him, coming from maybe like a humble family from like Holland, from the Netherlands, went to a community like it was could be a big chunk of money to have the first exit. But then he thought, okay, $5 million would be just enough to start a new business, try to build a team, build the product market fit, and end up where I just am today. Because I'm not going to retire with that $1 million. So, is my life going to be more interesting having to start over, or just continue from where I am and trying to see the product through? Um, and that's why he would decide to the next step about how much more interesting and how much he could grow on this next phase of whatever he was doing, rather than the selling out. So yeah. Yes, because when he shared exactly when he shared his framework and he started to think, and then he started to tell me the what he wanted to do with Rocket.Chat, like after acquiring it, and be turning into a part of GitLab, just like a component of the main GitLab structure. And then I was thinking, okay, what is going to be more interesting? Just selling my company to GitLab and then becoming a product manager and trying to see how my product would fit with this other product, or trying to turn my idea into a proper business, creating a culture, hiring people, finding investors, and like how many more things I will live through, and how much more interesting it will be if I take the road which is more risky, but it's going to be like building the Rocket.Chat into its own company. So inadvertently, he gave me the fact, not the facts, the reasoning to decline his offer, because I thought it would be more interesting to build a company from scratch than
Yeah.
just merging into something that he already built.
Absolutely. And I think that oftentimes also, I like that quote from Seneca about, that we suffer more through imagination than reality. And in the end,
Most
when we
definitely.
just, right, when we look into things in terms of like, okay, what are the actual sacrifices I'd have to make in order to not right take the it's like that would be like the chocolate cake decision. You're on a diet, there's the dessert there, and you're kind of like it's easier. I'll make more money now. And having made those decisions in my career, where I opened up, what things in terms of like values and principles for a more comfortable present, they always come back to bite you. And so that fortitude, but you have to learn as well. I think that it's that whole Mike Tyson thing. Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face, and you have to get punched a few times so you learn how to spare properly in life. But it's coming back to the NEA investment, right? As
Yeah.
a true like almost bespoke pre-seed, right? He's in DC, flies to New York. You fly to New York. He writes it on a piece of paper and says, "Hey, take this to Wilson Sonsini. They'll make it into a term sheet." And now, how much did NEA invest at that time?
It was $5 million.
Yeah, it's a $5 million pre-seed. But when was this? What was the year?
Yeah, with the because we had to create a company, he was getting nervous because I told him like, okay, we're gonna have to incorporate first. And in US, I think it's pretty straightforward to incorporate, right? But we have to incorporate like the Brazilian entity, the Cayman Island entity, the C corp, and then being now in Porto Alegre, like getting all the contracts signed was taking way took maybe like 3 months. So by the time we were ready to for him to make the investment, it was 2017. It was the like December 2016 when I all got ready. So I finally felt that the company started to use the money. Was January 2017.
Amazing. Still a pretty large amount for a pre-seed even to this day to form a single investor, right? So
An interesting story about Harry and his passing away. What I've learned was when they called me to tell, okay, Harry passed away. We're gonna have a memorial, like, and then other founders will come. Um, and do you wanna come? And in some ways, I my feeling, and I had to choose between going to my best friend's wedding, one of my best friend's wedding. The guy I lived in London with, for like go partying together and like do all the crazy shit together, going to Ibiza together, and it was his wedding, and he was getting married to the like another big friend of mine, and then I've and it was going to Harry's memorial, so it was not just a fun trip. Like I was actually making a choice between two important things. And I called my friend and said, "Look, I've I'm sorry, but I feel compelled to go." And there was a bunch of reasons. I was trying to identify what caused me to go there. So there was one that I felt owing Harry to go there because he always told me that I have to teach his mom to speak Portuguese again because she was born in Brazil and she lived in Rio until she was 16. And so he always told his mom that he invested in a Brazilian company, and then she would meet a Brazilian and have a conversation and be able to use her Portuguese or refresh her Portuguese. And then I was thinking, okay, I told him so many times that I was going to do that. That's maybe the last opportunity to meet his mom and like to go and meet his family, right? And also I felt like part of his family in some ways, like the kind of relationship that we had, even for a short time. It felt like so intimate, so the kind of like conversations about like dreams and so he felt that he became in a very short period a friend, also in some ways I wanted to see who were the other people he invested on, like what was this atmosphere and what he was his legacy. So in some ways that was actually very important to me to go to that memorial, to be there and to meet his family, to meet his friends, to meet the other founders, and it was quite an experience. I was actually even more impressed than I expected, positively impressed than expected. The other founders that I've met, they were crying like babies, which I'm not sure would happen for every investor, every founder relationship, right? that they would cry, like they would be so impacting. Even people who already had their exits, they have their IPO, everything, and then they would describe Harry as being sometimes like a key factor in their success.
That's
And
great.
the
I
person
think that
who,
that's the aside from, of course, having the financial returns through your investors, that's a good goal for a VC. It's basically like when you die, hopefully all the founders that you've invested show up at your funeral and they sob like little children. Uh,
and they were saying like he was the guy who gave me strength when he thought it was like I was about to quit, and then the guy was saying like, and then Harry came in and helped me like, come on, we trusted you, let's find a way out. And then sometimes even putting more money on a company that was not doing great because he believed on the founder and believed that they would turn around and do something. So that's also what made me understand that for Harry, the reason why he was on the Midas list 10 10 years in a row was not because he made the initial right choice. He did a right choice about choosing those founders, right, and aligning on values with those founders. But he didn't stop there. He put the effort on making sure that those founders would get the support and they would be feel confident that they could pursue and having the backing of the investor during the hard time. So and from the stories that I've heard, a lot of his investments could have gone south if he didn't participate and get the founders the space and support for him to make the right decision and to persevere. So the work didn't stop on just the writing the check. Definitely
Absolutely,
is
yes.
beyond.
And I think you need to understand also, when to, like, as an investor, I always want to be the first phone call in moments of glory and in moments of, doom. That's what you want to build enough trust to know that, like, you are the first phone call for maximum celebration, and hey, like, we have this massive problem right now, like, what can we do to help? And it's important to also know. uh, I remember when, also, talk about a framework from Sequoia, where I was talking to Sebastian Mejia, the founder of Rappi, and he said that's like, hey, one thing that they do usually with their founders is that, like, they'll bring you up when you're feeling down, and they also put you down when you're feeling like you're like the most amazing thing there. And that emotional fluctuation is the norm in decacorn building, I guess. And then, I thought that was so important, right? Even just this week, I'm helping one of it's a company I was as an angel investor, and I've asked the founder. It's raising a pre-seed right now, and it's going. It is making progress, but not at supernova type of progress. And I've asked him also. I was like, "Can you make payroll next month?" and and then he said, I can't. And we're like, no problem, right? Like, let's continue to introduce you to more investors, and I just want you to understand that I made this investment in you because I think that you have all the skill sets to be extremely successful. So just breathe, and we're here to support you and help you. And having that emotional fortitude is by far, I think, the most it's one of the most important things. And you don't want to
Yeah.
be around, some investors are also like stupid, like, cheerleaders. Hey, everything's great, I don't think that's the right way to operate. I think
No,
you
it
need to.
doesn't. It doesn't help you grow, right? Like it
Yeah.
doesn't. It's the same as parents that give you a participation prize for everything. That doesn't help you get anywhere. Like
Yes, and that's why we have such a soft generation, I guess, coming up. But that, not with every kid, not with every parent. but that's a whole nother story. So then